brought to you by Soundlibra.com. You can find a direct link to our full library in the description of this audio, or visit us anytime at Soundlibra.com. Hello, ready to unlock your learning potential?
And I'm Lisa. We are so excited to embark on this journey with you.
Just a quick heads up before we dive in. While we're discussing learning strategies that can apply to any field, please remember we aren't providing professional medical or financial advice. Always consult with a professional for your specific health or financial needs.
That's an important point to keep in mind as we explore these techniques. This is episode 1, and our mission is simple: to unlock your potential to learn absolutely anything you put your mind to.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's where the power of self-learning comes in. For too long, we've been conditioned to believe that learning happens only in formal classrooms, led by instructors, following a rigid curriculum. But the truth is, we are all natural-born learners. We just need the right tools and mindset to reignite that spark.
That's such a good point. Many of us probably feel intimidated by the idea of learning something completely new, something outside our comfort zone. We might think, I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the time, or where would I even start?
Those are incredibly common feelings, and we'll be addressing them head-on throughout this series. Our overarching goal isn't just to teach you how to learn specific things, but to teach you how to learn. This is what we call meta-learning, learning about learning itself.
So, it's like learning the operating system of your brain, rather than just running one specific application, right?
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. By understanding the principles of meta-learning, you gain a framework that applies to mastering any skill, any subject, at any point in your life. Whether you want to learn a new language, master a musical instrument, understand complex scientific theories, or even build a business, the underlying learning process is common threads.
And this series will guide us through those threads. Can you give us a roadmap of what listeners can expect over the next episodes?
Absolutely. We'll start by digging deep into the meta-learning mindset. We'll explore why it's so crucial and how to cultivate a mindset that embraces challenges and sees learning as an opportunity, not a chore.
So, shifting our perspective to see learning as an exciting adventure rather than a difficult task. I like that.
Exactly. Then, we'll move on to deconstructing skills. This is where we break down complex abilities into smaller, manageable components, creating a clear blueprint for learning. Think of it like understanding the ingredients and steps before you bake a complex cake.
Ah, so you're not just randomly throwing things together and hoping for the best. You have a plan or roadmap.
Precisely. After that, we'll dive into the science of focused practice. This isn't just about putting in the hours. It's about making those hours count through deliberate effort. We'll explore strategies for maximizing your learning time and ensuring every study session is productive.
This is where we really learn to be efficient, isn't it? Many people study for hours, but don't see the results they want.
That's often because they're not practicing intentionally. We'll also cover the vital importance of the feedback loop, how to get constructive criticism and use it to fuel your improvement. And of course, we'll tackle those inevitable learning plateaus, those frustrating moments when you feel stuck. We'll give you strategies to break through them.
I can already see how this is going to be so valuable. Learning how to overcome those hurdles is just as important as learning the skill itself.
Absolutely. We'll also equip you with the knowledge to curate your own learning toolkit, identifying the best resources and strategies for your unique needs. And for those who want to accelerate their progress, we'll explore the concept of learning sprints.
Learning sprints? That sounds intense, but in a good way.
It can be incredibly effective for rapid skill acquisition. Throughout this whole process, we'll also focus on building rock-solid self-teaching confidence, because believing in your ability to learn is half the battle.
Oh, that confidence piece is huge. So many people doubt themselves before they even begin.
We'll end by looking at how to integrate the skills you learn, moving beyond mastering one thing to becoming a versatile, adaptable learner. And finally, We'll discuss how to make lifelong learning a sustainable habit, a continuous journey of growth.
Wow, Alex. That roadmap is incredibly comprehensive. It feels like by the end of the series, we'll have the ultimate guide to becoming an empowered self-learner.
That's the dream, Lisa, and it's achievable for anyone. The principles we'll discuss are universal. They're about understanding how your brain works and leveraging that knowledge to learn effectively. It's about taking control of your intellectual destiny.
It really is about empowerment. In today's world, where information is abundant but true understanding and mastery require effort, this skill set is invaluable. It allows you to adapt to career changes, explore new hobbies, and simply deepen your understanding of the world around you.
Think about the freedom that comes with knowing you can learn almost anything. You're not limited by your current knowledge or a fixed set of skills. You become a lifelong student, always curious, always growing.
And that curiosity is what drives innovation and personal fulfillment. It's what prevents us from becoming stagnant. This series is for anyone who has ever looked at something and thought, I wish I could do that, or I wish I understood that.
And the beauty of it is that you can. This isn't about innate talent. It's about effective strategies. We'll be providing actionable advice, practical techniques, and a supportive framework.
So, for anyone listening, if you've ever felt the desire to learn something new, or perhaps felt like you've hit a learning wall, this is the place for you. This is episode 1, and it's all about setting the stage for that transformative self-learning journey.
We'll be breaking down complex ideas into digestible chunks, using relatable examples, and guiding you step by step. Remember, the goal here is to build your confidence and equip you with the meta-learning superpower.
So, to recap, in this episode, we've introduced the core concept of self-learning and its immense power. We've highlighted the importance of a meta-learning mindset, learning how to learn, and we've outlined the exciting journey we'll be taking together over the next 11 episodes.
We're laying the foundation for you to learn anything you can imagine. We'll cover everything from developing the right mindset and deconstructing skills to mastering focused practice, seeking feedback, and overcoming learning plateaus, all the way to building confidence and embracing lifelong growth.
It's going to be a deep dive into how to truly teach yourself anything. We're so thrilled to have you with us for episode 1.
Next episode, we'll be diving into meta-learning mindset mastery. Get ready to transform how you think about learning. Next episode, the meta-learning mindset mastery. Welcome back to Teach Yourself Anything. Last time, we explored the expansive possibilities of self-learning. Now, let's dive into the engine that drives it all, the meta-learning mindset.
That's right, Alex. Episode 1 was all about igniting that spark. But if episode 1 was the why, then episode 2 is the how, specifically changing the way we think about learning itself. We're talking about mastering the art of learning how to learn.
Exactly, Lisa. Meta-learning. It sounds a bit abstract, but it's incredibly practical. At its core, meta-learning is about developing a deep understanding of your own learning process. It's about becoming self-aware of how you best acquire new information and skills. Think of it as stepping back and observing your own learning journey.
So, it's not just about the subject you're learning, but about the process of learning that subject?
Precisely. Imagine you want to learn to play the guitar. You could just pick up a guitar and try to strum. That's learning guitar. But meta-learning would involve asking yourself, what are the different ways to learn guitar? What works best for me? Do I learn better by watching videos, reading books, taking lessons, or by just experimenting? Do I need structure, or am I a more intuitive learner?
I see. So, instead of just jumping in, you're first strategizing how to jump in effectively. You're becoming a conductor of your own learning orchestra, not just a musician playing a single instrument.
That's a fantastic analogy, Lisa. And a key component of this meta-learning mindset is intentionality. It means approaching learning with a clear purpose and a plan. It's not about passively absorbing information. It's about actively seeking it out, processing it, and applying it. Every learning session should have a goal, even if it's a small one.
Intentionality. That makes sense. If I'm just reading a book for entertainment, that's a different kind of engagement than reading a textbook to pass an exam. My mind is set to a different task.
And that's the shift. When you're meta-learning, you're setting your mind to the task of learning itself. You're asking, what are my learning objectives? What outcomes do I want to achieve? And what are the most effective strategies to get me there? This intentionality guides your effort and prevents aimless study.
So we have self-awareness and intentionality. What else is crucial for this meta-learning mindset?
Adaptability is huge. The learning landscape is constantly changing. New information emerges, our own understanding evolves, and sometimes the strategies that once worked might need adjustments. Being adaptable means being open to changing your approach. If you've been trying to learn a language by only using flashcards and it's not yielding the results you want, adaptability means being willing to try a conversation partner or immersion techniques.
It's about not being rigid then. Sticking to a plan, even when it's clearly not working, is the opposite of effective learning.
Exactly. It's about flexibility. And this adaptability ties directly into something we'll explore more in later episodes: feedback. Being adaptable means actively seeking and incorporating feedback to refine your learning path. You're not just learning from the material, you're learning about your learning from the results you're getting.
So, to recap the core principles so far: self-awareness, knowing how you learn best; intentionality, having a clear purpose and plan; and adaptability, being flexible enough to change your approach when needed. These sound like fundamental building blocks for anyone who wants to teach themselves anything.
They are. And it's important to understand that this isn't about being a genius. It's about being a smart learner. It's a conscious effort to optimize your learning process. Many people struggle with learning because they haven't cultivated this meta-learning mindset. They try to force themselves into learning methods that don't suit them, or they learn without a clear goal.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint or the right tools. You might eventually get something standing, but it'll be far less efficient and probably less sturdy than if you had a proper plan and the right equipment from the start.
Another great analogy. And this mindset shift is incredibly empowering. When you understand how you learn, you unlock the ability to learn anything. You're not limited by your current knowledge or a perceived lack of talent. You're equipped with the strategies to acquire new knowledge and skills effectively.
So, for someone listening right now who feels they aren't a natural learner, what's the first step they can take to cultivate this meta-learning mindset?
The very first step is simply to start paying attention. Be curious about your own learning. When you encounter something new you want to learn, pause before you dive in. Ask yourself, how do I usually approach things like this? What has worked for me in the past, even for small things? What didn't work? And what are my specific goals for learning this particular thing? This act of conscious reflection is where the meta-learning journey begins.
It's about making your internal learning processes external and observable, like turning on a light in a room you never knew existed.
Exactly. And as you do this, you'll start to identify patterns. Maybe you find that you remember facts best when you associate them with vivid images. Or perhaps you realize that you need to actively teach a concept to someone else, or even to yourself, for it to truly sink in. These are valuable insights that you can then intentionally leverage.
This sounds like it could significantly reduce frustration too. If you know a certain method isn't working for you, and you have the adaptability to try something else, you're not going to get stuck in that loop of frustration as easily.
Precisely. Frustration often stems from hitting a wall with a particular approach and not knowing how to pivot. The meta-learning mindset gives you the tools to recognize that you've hit a wall and, more importantly, the confidence and strategies to find a way around it or over it. It's about learning with purpose and with a plan, but a plan that you can adjust as you learn more about the subject and about yourself as a learner.
So, to summarize today's episode on the meta-learning mindset mastery, We've established that meta-learning is about learning how to learn. It's founded on three key principles: self-awareness, understanding your own learning style, intentionality, approaching learning with clear goals and strategies, and adaptability, being flexible and willing to adjust your methods. Cultivating this mindset is the critical first step in becoming an effective self-teacher, empowering you to learn anything with greater efficiency and confidence.
Well put, Lisa. This mindset shift is truly the foundation upon which all successful self-teaching is built. Next episode, Deconstructing Skills, the Blueprint for Learning. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the meta-learning mindset. Today, we're diving into episode 3, Deconstructing Skills, the Blueprint for Learning.
That's right, Alex. Last episode set the stage for how to approach learning. Now we're getting practical, talking about breaking down the overwhelming mountain of a new skill into a series of manageable hills.
Exactly. Think about it. If your goal is to become a fluent Spanish speaker, or a proficient baker, or a skilled programmer, just saying, I want to learn Spanish or I want to bake bread is incredibly vague. Where do you even start? It's like looking at a giant, complex machine and not knowing which bolt to turn first.
And that's where skill deconstruction comes in. It's about dissecting that complex machine into its individual parts, understanding how they work, and then reassembling them in a way that makes sense for learning.
Precisely. The core idea behind skill deconstruction is to identify the fundamental building blocks of any skill. We're not just looking at the end result, we're mapping out the journey. This involves identifying the core competencies and then breaking those down into essential subskills.
So, core competencies are like the big chapters in a book, and subskills are the individual sentences or paragraphs within those chapters.
That's a great analogy, Lisa. The core competencies are the major skills or knowledge areas that form the foundation of the larger skill you want to acquire. For example, in public speaking, a core competency might be structuring a speech. Another might be delivering with confidence.
Okay, I'm with you. So, once we've identified these core competencies, we then break those down further into what you called essential subskills. These are the smaller, actionable steps needed to master the core competency.
Exactly. Let's stick with structuring a speech as our core competency. What are the essential subskills that go into that? Well, you need to be able to outline your main points. You need to craft a compelling introduction and a memorable conclusion. You also need to figure out how to organize your supporting details.
So instead of just thinking, structure my speech, you now have specific tasks: create an outline, write an intro, write a conclusion, and arrange supporting evidence. That feels much more achievable.
Absolutely. And this is where the blueprint aspect really comes into play. By deconstructing a skill this way, you're creating a detailed roadmap. You're essentially reverse engineering the skill. You're looking at what an expert can do and then figuring out the smallest possible steps they must have taken to get there.
This sounds like it takes a bit of analysis before you even start practicing. How do we go about identifying these competencies and subskills?
That's a fantastic question, and it often involves a combination of research and introspection. First, you need to clearly define the skill you want to learn. Be as specific as possible. Then, you can start researching. Read articles, watch tutorials, talk to people who have mastered the skill. What are the common themes? What do experts emphasize?
So, if I want to learn to play the guitar, I'd research what makes a good guitar player. Is it finger dexterity? Understanding chords? Rhythm? Knowing popular songs?
Perfect example. You'd quickly identify that finger dexterity is a core competency. Then you'd break that down, practicing finger exercises, learning to fret notes cleanly, developing strumming patterns. For understanding chords, subskills would be learning basic major and minor chords, understanding chord progressions, and so on.
It's like peeling an onion, isn't it? Each layer reveals smaller, more manageable pieces.
Precisely. And the beauty of this approach is that it works for virtually any skill. Whether it's a physical skill like juggling, a creative skill like painting, or an intellectual skill like coding, the process remains the same. You define the end goal, identify the major components, and then drill down into the individual actions and knowledge required for each component.
So, what are some common pitfalls or things to watch out for when deconstructing a skill?
A big one is getting stuck at a superficial level. You might think, to code, I need to learn Python. But that's not deconstruction. That's just naming a tool. You need to go deeper. What specifically about Python? Variables? Loops? Functions? And what purpose do those serve?
So, it's not just identifying what to learn, but also why you need to learn it and how it fits into the bigger picture.
Exactly. Another pitfall is trying to deconstruct too much at once. Don't try to map out every single subskill for an entire complex field in one sitting. Focus on one or two core competencies and their immediate subskills to start. Get good at those and then move on. It's about building momentum.
That makes sense. It prevents that feeling of being overwhelmed again. You tackle one small section of the blueprint at a time.
And finally, remember that deconstruction isn't a one-time event. As you learn and progress, you'll discover nuances you didn't see before. You might realize a subskill you thought was simple is actually quite complex, or you might find entirely new subskills you need to learn. Your blueprint should be a living document.
So, to recap for our listeners, skill deconstruction is about taking a large, daunting skill and breaking it down into its fundamental components. We identify core competencies, the major pillars of the skill, and then break those down further into essential subskills, the small, actionable steps. This creates a detailed blueprint for learning, allowing us to see the path forward and tackle our goals piece by piece, avoiding overwhelm and building a clear roadmap.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. By deconstructing skills, we transform the abstract into the concrete, the impossible into the achievable. It's about understanding the underlying mechanics so you can learn more effectively and efficiently.
It really sets us up for the next episodes, where we'll talk about how to actually practice these skills effectively.
Absolutely. So, to recap what we've covered today, we've learned that to tackle any skill, we need a clear blueprint. This blueprint is built by deconstructing the skill into core competencies and then further into essential subskills. This process turns overwhelming goals into manageable steps.
By following this deconstruction process, we gain clarity on what we need to learn and in what order, setting a solid foundation for focused practice, which we'll dive into next.
Next episode, Focus Practice Part 1, The Power of Deliberate Effort. Welcome back. Last time, Lisa, we deconstructed skills into their fundamental components.
That's right, Alex. We learned how to create a blueprint for learning any new skill by identifying exactly what makes it up. It felt like finally having a map for a huge journey.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into the engine that drives you along that map. Focus practice. Specifically, we're talking about the power of deliberate effort. This isn't just about putting in hours. It's about making those hours incredibly effective.
So, not just mindlessly repeating something until you get it right, but a more strategic way of practicing?
Precisely. Think about it. If you wanted to learn to play the guitar, you could strum chords randomly for hours and hours. You might get a little better, but you'd also likely develop bad habits and probably get frustrated.
That sounds like what I did when I first tried learning the ukulele. Lots of noise, not much music.
A common experience. Deliberate practice is the opposite of that. It's a highly structured approach to improving performance that involves thoughtfully and systematically working on specific aspects of a skill. The goal is to push beyond your current comfort zone and make tangible progress.
So, it's about identifying your weaknesses and actively working on them, rather than just practicing what you're already good at.
You've hit the nail on the head, Lisa. This concept was popularized by psychologist Anders Ericsson. He and his colleagues studied expert performers in fields like music, chess, and sports. They found that what separated the truly elite from the merely good wasn't just innate talent, but the way they practiced.
And this deliberate practice has specific characteristics, right? It's not just about effort.
Absolutely. There are a few key pillars. First, it's goal-oriented. You have a specific target you're aiming for. Remember our deconstruction from episode 3? That blueprint gives us the perfect targets. You identify a specific component of the skill that needs improvement.
So, if we were learning that guitar skill, instead of just playing a song, I might decide my target is to cleanly switch between a G and a C chord without buzzing.
Perfect example. That's a clear, specific, and actionable goal. Second, deliberate practice is focused. This means you're giving your full attention to the task. No distractions, no multitasking. It's about being present and engaged with what you're doing.
That's a hard one in our modern world, isn't it? My phone is always buzzing with notifications promising I'm missing out.
It certainly is a challenge, but the investment in focused attention during practice yields incredibly high returns. Think of it like training your attention muscles. The more you intentionally focus during practice, the better you become at focusing in general, which then spills over into other areas of your life.
That's a great way to look at it. So, specific goals and focused attention. What else?
The third pillar is immediate feedback. You need to know if you're succeeding or failing at your specific goal and why. This feedback can come from a coach, a mentor, a teacher, or even from self-assessment if you're skilled enough to recognize your own errors. For example, if you're practicing that chord change, you immediately hear when it's muddy or when you miss the note.
And the feedback tells you what to adjust for the next attempt.
Exactly. It's like a constant corrective loop. And this brings us to the fourth, and perhaps most crucial aspect, pushing beyond your comfort zone. Deliberate practice is challenging. It's designed to be difficult. If it feels easy, you're probably not practicing deliberately. You're likely just repeating what you already know.
So, it's supposed to feel a bit uncomfortable? Like you're right on the edge of what you can do?
Precisely. That's where the growth happens. Think of it like weightlifting. You don't get stronger by lifting weights you can easily manage. You get stronger by lifting weights that are challenging, pushing your muscles to their limit, and then recovering. Deliberate practice is like mental weightlifting.
Wow, that analogy really helps. So, we deconstruct a skill into its parts, then we pick one part, a specific goal. We focus all our attention on practicing that one part, we get immediate feedback on how we're doing, and we intentionally make it challenging, pushing our limits.
That's a beautiful summary, Lisa. Now, how do we actually implement this? The first step after deconstruction is to identify your current performance level for that specific component. Be honest with yourself. How well do you really perform that task right now?
Not how well I think I do, but how well I actually do.
Yes. Then you set your specific goal. Based on your deconstruction and your honest assessment, what's the next logical, challenging step you want to achieve? For instance, if your chord change is consistently buzzy, your goal might be to execute a smooth G to C chord transition 50% of the time on the first try.
That sounds much more manageable than play the song perfectly.
Absolutely. And once you have that goal, you dedicate a specific period to practicing only that. Imagine you have a 30-minute practice session. You're not going to flip between different things. For those 30 minutes, you're solely focused on that G to C chord transition.
And during that time, I'm actively listening for mistakes, for buzzing, for fumbled finger movements.
Exactly. And you're not just doing it over and over hoping it magically improves. You're thinking about why it's not working. Is my finger placement wrong? Am I pressing too lightly? Is my strumming hand too fast? This self-reflection, coupled with the feedback you're receiving, is where the learning accelerates.
So it's a very active, analytical process, not a passive one.
Immensely active. And this is where many people stumble. They practice, but it's not deliberate. They might practice scales on the piano, but they don't focus on making each note perfectly even in tone and timing. They might write code for a program, but they don't specifically drill on writing cleaner, more efficient functions.
They're doing the what but not the how or the why of improvement.
Precisely. We're building a bridge from simply doing an activity to truly mastering it. And that bridge is built with deliberate practice. We deconstructed the skill. Now we're targeting specific pieces of that deconstruction with focused, challenging practice sessions that provide immediate feedback.
It makes perfect sense. It's about being intentional with every minute spent practicing.
Indeed. And for our next episode, we'll build on this by exploring how to maximize your learning time even further within these focused practice sessions itself. We'll look at different techniques to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak.
Great. So, to recap today's episode on deliberate practice, it's a structured approach to skill improvement. We identified 4 key pillars: being goal-oriented with specific targets, maintaining focused attention without distractions, seeking immediate feedback to guide adjustments, and intentionally pushing beyond your current comfort zone to foster true improvement.
That's absolutely right. This is the engine of mastery. Next episode, Focus Practice Part 2, Maximizing Your Learning Time. Welcome back to Teach Yourself Anything. Last time, we dove deep into the power of deliberate practice.
Right, Alex? We learned that simply repeating a skill isn't enough. We need to be intentional about how we practice. It's about smart effort, not just brute force repetition.
Exactly. And today, we're building directly on that foundation. Today's episode, Focus Practice Part 2, Maximizing Your Learning Time. We'll equip you with practical techniques to get the most learning out of every minute. We'll talk about staying focused, banishing distractions, and weaving an active recall and spaced repetition into your practice routines.
So, how do we make sure our practice sessions are actual learning powerhouses?
Great question, Lisa. The first key is combating distractions. Distractions are everywhere, aren't they? From phone notifications to social media, our attention is constantly pulled. This makes focused, deep learning incredibly challenging.
It feels like our brains are being trained for quick, surface-level engagement rather than sustained concentration.
Precisely. So, for focused practice, we need to create an environment that supports sustained attention. Think of preparing a chef's workspace. Clear away clutter, gather ingredients, set up tools. For learning, this means identifying and minimizing potential distractions before you start.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Beyond turning off notifications, which feels obvious.
It goes deeper. It involves intentionality about your physical space. Is it quiet? Is it free from visual clutter? For some, a dedicated study space works wonders. For others, it might be using noise-canceling headphones or even going to a library or coffee shop where ambient noise helps drown out other random thoughts. The goal is to create a distraction-free zone.
A distraction-free zone. I like that. It sounds intentional and proactive.
It is. And it's not just about the external environment. We also need to manage our internal distractions, those wandering thoughts, worries, or to-do lists that pop into our heads. One powerful technique here is to have a distraction pad nearby. This is simply a piece of paper or a digital note where you jot down any thought that pulls you away from your practice. A nagging reminder, a sudden idea, anything. Once it's written down, you acknowledge it and then consciously let it go for now, knowing you'll come back to it later.
So, you're not ignoring the thought, you're just deferring it. That seems much more manageable than trying to force yourself to forget it.
Exactly. It's about taming your mind, not fighting it. Now, Beyond creating the right environment, we need to structure our practice sessions to maintain that focus. When we're learning something new or challenging, our attention can wane. This is where time boxing techniques, like the Pomodoro technique, can be incredibly effective.
Ah, yes, the Pomodoro technique. Work for a set time, then take a short break.
That's the core of it. Typically, it's 25 minutes of focused work followed by a 5-minute break. After 4 of these work intervals, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. The key here is that during those 25 minutes, you are fully engaged in your practice. No multitasking, no peeking at your phone.
And those short breaks are crucial, aren't they? They prevent burnout and allow our brains to consolidate what we've just learned.
Absolutely. Those breaks are not a sign of weakness. They are strategic pauses that improve overall learning efficiency. Think of it like a runner taking sips of water and brief rest during a long race. It helps them go further and faster in the long run. By consistently working in these focused bursts, we train our minds to concentrate for longer periods over time, gradually extending those work intervals.
So, we're creating focused practice blocks and building our attention muscles simultaneously.
Precisely. Now, let's talk about what we actually do during those focused practice times to maximize learning. We touched on deliberate practice last time, but we can amplify its impact by embedding active recall and spaced repetition.
Active recall is that idea of trying to retrieve information from our memory, right? Instead of passively reviewing notes.
That's a perfect way to put it. So, during your practice session, don't just passively go through the motions. Actively test yourself. If you're learning a new language, for instance, instead of rereading vocabulary lists, try to recall the words from their English translations. If you're practicing a musical instrument, try to play a piece from memory without looking at the sheet music. You can also ask yourself questions. What was the key principle we just discussed? Or how does this concept apply here?
It's like forcing your brain to do a little workout to bring the information to the surface.
Exactly. And this effortful retrieval strengthens the memory trace far more effectively than passive review. It also highlights what you don't know, which, remember from our talk on deliberate practice, is exactly where you need to direct your attention.
So, during our focus practice, we're actively quizzing ourselves on what we're trying to learn.
Yes, and we combine this with spaced repetition. This means revisiting what you've learned at increasing intervals. So, after you've recalled information and feel confident, don't just forget about it. Schedule a time to recall it again tomorrow, then in 3 days, then a week, and so on. This combats the natural forgetting curve.
This sounds like it requires some planning to remember when to revisit things.
It does. And this is where tools can be helpful, but the principle is simple. You can create a basic system yourself. Review new material daily for the first week, then perhaps every few days, then weekly, and then monthly. Many digital flashcard systems and learning apps are built around this principle of spaced repetition, making it easier to manage. The core idea is to consistently re-engage with the material just as your memory of it is beginning to fade.
So, by actively recalling information and then revisiting it at spaced intervals during our focused practice, we're making our learning stick much better. It's like reinforcing a path in the forest by walking it regularly.
A great analogy, Lisa. We're not just walking the path once, we're reinforcing it so it becomes well-trodden. So, to recap what we've covered today for maximizing your learning time. First, create your distraction-free zone by managing both external and internal interruptions and using techniques like a distraction pad. Second, structure your practice with time boxing, like the Pomodoro technique, to maintain sustained focus in manageable bursts. And third, embed active recall and spaced repetition into your practice sessions to ensure information sticks and truly becomes part of your knowledge base.
Those are three powerful strategies. Creating the right environment, using focused time blocks, and actively retrieving and spacing out our learning. It makes every minute spent practicing far more effective.
Absolutely. By shifting from simply spending time practicing to intentionally maximizing the impact of that time, you'll see your learning accelerate. It turns your practice sessions into true engines of skill acquisition.
It's about making every effort count.
Exactly. And this focus on efficient practice directly leads us into our next episode, where we'll explore the vital role of the feedback loop in fueling your improvement. How do you know if your practice is actually effective? And how do you use that information to get even better?
Can't wait for that one. So, to recap this episode, we learned how to create a distraction-free zone, use time boxing for focused bursts of practice, and actively recall and space out our learning to maximize our time and make it stick.
That's right. Next episode, the feedback loop fueling your improvement. Welcome back. Last time, we explored focused practice and how to make every moment count. Now let's tackle the feedback loop.
The feedback loop. It's like having a compass for learning, guiding your efforts.
Precisely. Practice is doing. Feedback tells you how you're doing and where to improve. It refines your practice, making it more effective. Without feedback, you practice in the dark.
So, it's about understanding your practice, not just putting in hours. What are the key parts of this loop?
The loop has 4 stages. First, perform the skill. That's your practice. Second, gather feedback. Third, interpret it, understanding its meaning. Fourth, adjust your practice based on that interpretation. It's a cycle. Act, get feedback, understand, adjust, and act again better.
Let's break down gathering feedback. Where does good feedback come from?
Good feedback comes from multiple sources. The most obvious is external feedback from a teacher, mentor, coach, or expert.
Like a guitar teacher pointing out a fretting error or a strumming issue.
Exactly. Quality external feedback is specific, actionable, and timely. Not, you're playing badly, but your index finger on the G chord is muting the B string. Try curving your finger more and pressing just behind the fret.
That's something clear I can work on. What other external sources exist?
Peer feedback from fellow learners is valuable. They might be facing similar challenges and offer fresh perspectives.
Sometimes a classmate spots a simple solution I've overlooked.
Exactly. Then there's feedback from the task itself, implicit feedback. If your baked cake is dense, the cake is giving you feedback. Or if people look confused when you speak a new language, that's feedback too.
We often think of others giving feedback, but our results provide it too.
Indeed. But perhaps the most powerful source is self-assessment. This is evaluating your own performance critically.
Self-assessment sounds challenging. How can you be objective about yourself?
It takes practice. Develop self-awareness by being present during practice, paying attention to what you're doing, and how it feels. Journal about sessions, or record yourself and review it later with a critical, fair eye.
So, if I'm learning public speaking, I could record myself and watch for posture, vocal tone, or eye contact.
A perfect example. It's not about self-criticism, but objective observation, gathering data. Remembering deliberate practice, self-assessment is key to identifying specific weaknesses to target.
It ties everything together. Once you have feedback, the next step is interpretation, making sense of it.
Many learners falter here. You distinguish constructive, actionable feedback from noise. Look for patterns. If multiple sources say the same thing, it's a strong signal.
If my guitar teacher, self-recording, and a fellow learner all mention my fingering, that's a clear focus area.
Exactly. You filter and prioritize. Consider the source. Expert feedback usually carries more weight. And relevance. Is the feedback pertinent to what you're working on now?
Crucial. A friend great at singing might comment on my musicality, but if I'm learning basic scales, their jazz improvisation feedback isn't the most helpful now.
Precisely. Be strategic. After interpreting and identifying needs, you adjust your practice.
This is where the loop closes and restarts. What kinds of adjustments can we make?
You can adjust technique, focus on specific issues, change practice routines, dedicating more time to weaker areas. Refine learning goals, perhaps breaking them into smaller steps. For example, if a complex music piece is too hard, feedback might suggest focusing on finger dexterity exercises first.
So this is a continuous process. Practice, feedback, understand, adjust.
That's the essence. It's iterative. The more effectively you engage with this loop, the faster you learn. It turns practice into an intelligent pursuit of mastery, driving progress and preventing stagnation.
To recap, perform an action, gather feedback from experts, peers, the task and self-assessment, interpret it to understand improvements needed, and adjust your future actions based on that interpretation.
You've got it. Cultivating the habit of seeking and using feedback is a powerful meta skill for any learning endeavor. It's the engine of progress.
It truly is the compass for learning, guiding, correcting, and moving us forward effectively.
Absolutely. Next episode, we'll explore what happens when progress seems to stall as we tackle how to break through learning plateaus.
Looking forward to it. See you then.
Welcome back to Teach Yourself Anything. Last time, we dove deep into the power of the feedback loop, understanding how crucial that information is for fueling our improvement. Now, it's time to tackle a challenge that every single learner faces at some point, the dreaded learning plateau.
Oh, the plateau. That frustrating feeling where you've been putting in the effort, but you just don't seem to be making any progress. It's like hitting a wall. We've all been there, Alex, and it can be incredibly demotivating.
Exactly, Lisa. It's that point where your practice sessions start feeling stale and new concepts seem to slip through your fingers. The initial excitement fades, and you might even start questioning if you have what it takes to learn this skill. But here's the good news. Plateaus are a normal, even necessary, part of the learning process. They're not a sign of failure, but rather a signal that you're ready for the next level.
That's a great way to frame it. So, if plateaus are normal, how do we identify them? What are the signs that we're stuck?
Well, there are a few key indicators. One is a lack of noticeable improvement. You might be repeating the same exercises, but you're not getting any faster, any more accurate, or any more insightful. Another sign is a loss of motivation or interest. If you find yourself dreading your practice sessions or constantly procrastinating, that's a big red flag. You might also feel a sense of boredom or frustration, with a challenge you once found engaging now feels monotonous.
So, it's not just about not getting better, it's also about how we feel about the learning process. What's actually happening in our brains when we hit a plateau?
Great question. Think of your learning journey like climbing a staircase. Initially, each step feels distinct and you can clearly see yourself moving upwards. However, as you progress, you start to consolidate what you've learned. Your brain is busy making connections, strengthening neural pathways, and automating certain skills. This period of consolidation often looks like a flat landing between the stairs, a plateau. During this time, you're not really progressing vertically, but immense internal work is happening.
That visual of a landing between stairs is really helpful. So, the plateau isn't necessarily a lack of effort, but a different phase of learning happening internally.
Precisely. Another reason for plateaus can be that your practice has become too comfortable. You're performing tasks you've mastered, and your brain isn't being challenged enough to adapt and grow. Remember our discussions on deliberate practice? Plateaus often arise when practice shifts from being deliberate to being simply repetitive.
So we've stopped pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. What can we do when we realize we're hitting that plateau? How do we break through it?
The first step is often to acknowledge it without judgment. Don't beat yourself up. Instead, See it as an opportunity to reassess your strategy. One effective approach is to change your practice environment or methods. If you're learning a language, for instance, and you've been focused on grammar drills, try immersing yourself in music or podcasts. If you're learning to code and you've been doing small exercises, try tackling a slightly larger, perhaps even messy, real-world problem.
So, shaking things up. That makes sense. What if changing the how isn't enough? What if we need to change the what we're practicing?
That's a crucial point, Lisa. You might need to identify a new, related skill to focus on, or perhaps delve deeper into a specific aspect of your current skill. For example, if you're learning to play the guitar and you've plateaued on chords, you might decide to focus on a new technique like finger picking or explore music theory. This variation introduces new challenges and can reignite your interest, making your brain engage in a different way. It's about introducing novel stimuli.
Introducing novel stimuli. I like that. It's like giving your brain a new puzzle to solve. What about revisiting the fundamentals? Sometimes I feel like I've forgotten the basics in my rush to learn more advanced material.
Absolutely. Reconnecting with the fundamentals can be incredibly powerful. Sometimes, a plateau means there's a foundational concept that hasn't been fully internalized. Going back and reviewing, not just rereading, but actively re-engaging with. The basics can reveal gaps in your understanding or reinforce previously learned material in a way that prepares you for the next level. It's like reinforcing the foundation of a building before adding more stories.
That reinforces the idea that learning isn't always linear progress upwards. Sometimes it's about consolidation and strengthening what's already there before you can build higher.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of rest and varied activities. Sometimes the best way to break a plateau is to step away for a short period. Engage in other hobbies, spend time with friends, or simply get some good sleep. Your brain needs downtime to process information and recover. Burnout is a major enemy of progress, and allowing yourself breaks can prevent it and actually accelerate your learning when you return.
So, a plateau isn't a death sentence for learning. It's a signal to adjust our approach. We need to be observant of the signs, understand that internal consolidation is happening, and then be strategic in how we respond. This might involve changing our practice methods, exploring related skills, reinforcing fundamentals, or simply taking a well-deserved break.
You've summarized it perfectly, Lisa. Plateaus are essentially opportunities for growth in disguise. By understanding why they occur and employing these strategies, changing your practice, exploring new facets, revisiting essentials, and ensuring adequate rest, you can consistently break through these hurdles and continue your learning journey effectively. Remember, every plateau conquered leads you to a higher level of mastery.
That's incredibly encouraging, Alex. It reframes that frustrating experience into something positive and actionable.
Indeed. And it's all part of building that resilient, meta-learning mindset we've been cultivating. We've learned about the initial mindset, deconstructing skills, deliberate practice, the feedback loop, and now how to overcome plateaus. Next time, we'll explore how to curate your learning toolkit, gathering the best resources and strategies to support your self-teaching journey.
Excellent. So, to recap this episode's key takeaways, plateaus are a normal part of learning. Signs include a lack of progress, loss of motivation, and boredom. They occur due to internal consolidation or overly comfortable practice. To break through, we can change practice methods, explore new aspects, revisit fundamentals, and ensure we take breaks.
That's right. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep breaking through those plateaus. Next episode, curating your learning toolkit, resources, and strategies. Welcome back to Teach Yourself Anything. Last time we explored overcoming learning plateaus. Today, we're curating your learning toolkit.
That's right, Alex. With so much information available, knowing where to look is key. We need to find reliable sources and organize them efficiently.
Exactly. Think of building your learning toolkit like preparing for an important journey. You carefully select the right tools, the most dependable gear, and the clearest maps to guide your way. We need to build a personalized collection of resources and strategies.
So, where do we begin? What are the essential components of a strong learning toolkit?
Let's start with identifying high-quality information. This is a fundamental skill. How do we sift through the vast amount of data to find reliable sources?
For me, credibility is paramount. Who is providing the information? Do they have demonstrable expertise? Are they backing up their claims with evidence or references?
Absolutely. Whether it's a book, a website, or a video, we're looking for two key things: authority and accuracy. Is the author or organization recognized for their knowledge in this field? Is the information presented factually and supported by evidence, rather than just opinion?
And timeliness is important too, especially for fast-paced subjects, right? Old information might not be as useful.
Precisely. Timeliness matters. For some subjects like history, older sources can be invaluable. But for fields like technology or science, we need to ensure our resources are current. We can check this by looking at publication dates or when content was last updated.
So, credibility, accuracy, and timeliness. Those are our initial filters for evaluating information quality.
Exactly. Now, once we understand quality, we need to consider the types of resources we use. Learning isn't a one-size-fits-all endeavor. Different formats suit different people and different learning goals.
That's a good reminder. I know I learn best in different ways depending on what I'm trying to understand. Sometimes a book is perfect, and other times I need something more visual.
Perfectly put. Let's look at some key resource formats. Books are a cornerstone, offering in-depth exploration and structure knowledge. They're excellent for building a solid foundation.
I love delving into a comprehensive book on a topic. It feels like you're getting the complete picture.
Definitely. Then there are online courses and video tutorials. These are invaluable for practical skills or when visual demonstrations are needed. Platforms offer fantastic learning opportunities, often from experts. They can break down complex processes into manageable steps.
Yes, seeing someone perform a task can be so much clearer than just reading about it.
It truly is. This leads us to articles and blogs. While we must be mindful of quality here, well-written pieces can offer concise explanations, new perspectives, or specific topic updates. They're great for exploring an idea briefly or staying current.
So, books for depth, videos for demonstration, and articles for quick insights. What else should be in our toolkit?
We absolutely must include communities and human connection. Think about forums, online groups, or local meetups related to your learning interests. Engaging with others learning the same thing, or those who have mastered it, is incredibly valuable. You can ask questions, share your progress, and get feedback.
That's so important. Sometimes hearing other people's questions helps you identify things you hadn't even considered. And having a mentor figure to guide you is amazing.
Absolutely. Mentors, whether formal or informal, are a critical part of the learning toolkit. They can offer personalized advice, help you avoid common mistakes, and provide encouragement.
So, we've explored books, online courses, videos, articles, and communities for diverse formats. What about strategies for using these resources effectively?
Excellent question. It's not just about collecting resources, but how you integrate them. A powerful strategy is to use a combination of resources for the same topic. For example, you might read a chapter in a book about a scientific concept, then watch a video explaining it visually, and perhaps find an article discussing its latest applications.
That layering approach makes so much sense. You're approaching the same idea from different angles, reinforcing your understanding.
Precisely. This layering also helps build what we call mental models. A mental model is a conceptual framework that explains how something works. By using diverse resources, You gather information to construct a more robust and accurate mental model. Remember how we discussed deconstructing skills in episode 3? Building these mental models is a key part of that.
Ah, yes.
So, curating our toolkit isn't just about collecting materials, it's about actively using them to build deeper understanding.
Exactly. Another strategy is to be an active learner, not a passive one, with any resource. When reading a book, highlight key passages, jot down notes, or keep a separate notebook. When watching a video, pause frequently to take notes or write down questions to research later.
That's going back to our episode on deliberate practice, isn't it? Actively engaging with the material.
It is. Active engagement transforms passive information consumption into a meaningful learning experience. And speaking of meaningful experiences, let's not forget effective note-taking systems. A good system can be a powerful part of your toolkit for organizing knowledge and making connections.
What kind of note-taking systems are we talking about? I've heard of things like Cornell Notes or mind mapping.
Those are great examples. Cornell Notes, for instance, divide your page into sections for notes, cues, and a summary, promoting active recall. Mind mapping is fantastic for visually connecting ideas and seeing the big picture. Some people use digital tools to create interconnected knowledge webs. The key is finding a system that works for you and helps you review and recall information effectively.
So, the system itself becomes another tool to help us manage and retrieve the information we're learning.
You've got it. And finally, let's talk about curation as an ongoing process. Your learning toolkit shouldn't be static. As you learn, your needs will evolve and new resources will emerge. Regularly review your toolkit. Are these resources still serving you? Are there new formats or platforms you should explore?
It's like tending a garden. You prune what's no longer useful and plant new seeds.
A perfect analogy. It's also about avoiding information overload. By being intentional about what you consume and how you organize it, you can prevent feeling swamped and discouraged. Your curated toolkit helps you navigate the vast ocean of knowledge with a clear map and a reliable compass.
So, to recap our discussion on curating your learning toolkit, we started with evaluating information quality using credibility, accuracy, and timeliness. Then, we explored diverse formats: books for depth, videos for demonstration, articles for insights, and communities for connection. We also discussed strategies like layering information and active learning. And finally, we touched on note-taking systems and keeping your toolkit dynamic.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. Remember, the goal is to build a personalized system that empowers you to learn effectively and efficiently, making your self-teaching journey smoother and more rewarding.
It really does make a difference when you have the right tools and know how to use them.
Indeed. For our next episode, we're going to shift gears and talk about accelerating your progress with a concept called learning sprints.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
We'll see you then. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how to curate your learning toolkit. Now, let's accelerate your progress with learning sprints.
Learning sprints. It sounds like a fast track for our brains. Alex, what exactly is a learning sprint, and how does it help us learn faster?
A learning sprint is a highly focused period dedicated to a specific learning goal. Think of it as a mini marathon for your mind, covering a lot of ground in a short, concentrated burst. Instead of spreading learning out, you commit to a tightly scheduled, goal-oriented period, often from a few days to a couple of weeks.
So, it's about intensity and focus. What kind of goals are we talking about? Can I use a sprint to learn a whole new language?
Both are possible, but for maximum impact, define a very specific, achievable goal for each sprint. For example, instead of learn Spanish, a sprint goal might be master basic conversational Spanish greetings and introductions. The key is that the goal is tangible and can be realistically accomplished within the sprint's time frame. This focused objective keeps your effort concentrated.
That makes sense. A clear target keeps you on track. How do we plan one of these sprints?
First, define your sprint goal. Make it smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Once you have that clear goal, determine the duration of your sprint. Will it be a single weekend, a full week, or 2 weeks? Choose a time frame you can realistically commit to without burning out.
And how long is realistic? I imagine schedules vary greatly.
Exactly. It's personal. A sprint could be as short as a weekend, packed with dedicated hours, or it could be 2 weeks where you set aside significant chunks of each day. The important part isn't the absolute length, but the intensity and your commitment within that window. It's about creating a deliberate period where learning takes center stage.
Okay, goal and duration set. What's next?
Next is resource curation, tying into our last episode. Gather all the materials you'll need before your sprint begins. Books, online courses, tutorials, practice exercises. Have them ready and organized. This prevents time from being wasted searching for what you need during the sprint. Then, create a detailed schedule. Break down your goal into smaller daily tasks. This daily breakdown makes the overall goal feel less overwhelming and provides a clear roadmap for each day.
So, if my goal is to master basic Spanish greetings, my daily schedule might include learning 5 new phrases, practicing pronunciation, and then doing a short interactive exercise.
Precisely. And that schedule needs to account for breaks and energy management. This leads us to the execution phase. During your sprint, immerse yourself in your chosen subject. Minimize distractions as much as possible. Turn off social media notifications. Let others know you're in a focused learning period and carve out dedicated, uninterrupted time.
Minimizing distractions is always the hardest part, but I can see how crucial it is for a sprint to really work.
It truly is. Consistency is also key. Stick to your schedule as much as possible. When you encounter a challenge or a difficult concept, don't get discouraged. Remember the principles of deliberate practice. Focus on understanding, seek clarification, and refine your approach.
And what about managing our energy? Spending so much time focused can be draining.
Absolutely. That's where scheduled breaks and self-care come in. Regular short breaks, 5 to 10 minutes every hour, can help prevent mental fatigue. Longer breaks for meals and some physical activity are also vital. Think of it like refueling during that mini marathon. You can't sprint indefinitely on empty. Maintaining your physical and mental well-being ensures you sustain the intensity required for the sprint.
So it's not just about pushing harder, but pushing smarter and taking care of ourselves. This sounds like it could really help us overcome those learning plateaus we talked about too.
You've hit on a key benefit. Learning sprints are incredibly effective for breaking through plateaus. When you're stuck, a concentrated burst of effort on that specific hurdle can often unlock understanding. By dedicating a focus period, you're giving your brain a dedicated opportunity to wrestle with the problem without distractions from other learning areas. It's like shining a spotlight on the difficult spot.
And at the end of the sprint, what do? Do we just stop?
Not all. The conclusion of a sprint is just as important as its beginning. You need to review your progress against your initial goal. Did you achieve it? Celebrate your successes, no matter how small. If you didn't fully meet your goal, analyze what went wrong and what you can learn for your next sprint. This review process is essential for continuous improvement.
So, it's not just about the sprint itself, but also the preparation and the follow-up. It's a complete cycle.
Exactly. And this cycle of preparation, execution, and review is what makes learning sprints so powerful for accelerating progress. They allow you to make significant gains in a short period, which can be incredibly motivating and build your self-teaching confidence. Remember the concept of feedback loops? This sprint cycle provides constant feedback on your learning process.
It's like taking the principles of deliberate practice and resource curation and packaging them into this high-impact format. I can already think of a few areas where I could apply this. Perhaps tackling a challenging chapter in a programming book or dedicating time to practicing a specific musical piece.
Those are perfect examples. The beauty of learning sprints is their adaptability. You can apply them to virtually any skill or subject. They're designed to give you momentum, to allow you to experience significant progress rapidly, and to reignite your enthusiasm when it might be waning. It's a proactive way to ensure consistent learning advancement.
So, to recap, learning sprints are intensive, focus periods for achieving specific learning goals. To execute one, we need to define a SMART goal, choose a realistic duration, curate our resources beforehand, and create a detailed daily schedule, including breaks. During the sprint, we minimize distractions, maintain consistency, and manage our energy. Finally, we review our progress to learn for future sprints.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. Learning sprints are about concentrated effort, strategic planning, and disciplined execution to achieve significant learning outcomes in a compressed time frame. They are a powerful tool in your self-teaching arsenal.
I feel really energized by this.
It's a practical strategy that feels achievable.
And that's precisely what we aim for. In our next episode, we'll build on this momentum by talking about how to cultivate rock-solid self-teaching confidence. Next episode, building rock-solid self-teaching confidence. Welcome back. Last time we covered accelerating your progress. Now we'll build rock-solid self-teaching confidence.
Confidence is key, Alex. Many want to learn but doubt their own ability to teach themselves.
Exactly. We'll share practical methods to know you can learn. We'll celebrate victories, turn setbacks into lessons, and cultivate a resilient mindset.
How do we start building this? Is it just about believing in ourselves?
Belief helps, but true confidence comes from experience and strategy. It's about building a personal track record of success. Think of learning to ride a bike. Each small success, like balancing for a few seconds, builds your belief that you can do more.
So, we need to actively acknowledge these small successes along the way?
Absolutely. Celebrate every small win. Remember how we break down skills into smaller, manageable steps? Each step you master is a win. It's important to pause and acknowledge it.
How do we practically do that? What does celebrating a win look like when you're just trying to grasp a concept?
It can be as simple as a mental note or a quick jot in a journal. I finally grasped concept X, or you can share it with someone. Making your progress concrete, even in a small way, creates tangible evidence for yourself that you are moving forward. You're essentially collecting little victory badges.
I really like that idea, collecting badges. It makes the learning process feel more like an engaging game rather than a daunting task. So, celebrating wins builds confidence. What about when things don't go as planned, or when we encounter a mistake?
That's where we learn to reframe failures. In self-teaching, mistakes aren't roadblocks that stop you, they're signposts. They clearly show where to adjust your approach, where your understanding might be shaky, or where you need to focus your effort.
So, instead of thinking I'm bad at this or I'll never get it, we should think this particular approach isn't working for me right now, so let me try something else.
Precisely. It's about shifting your internal dialogue. Ask yourself specific questions like, what specifically am I struggling with? Or what else worked when I faced a similar challenge in the past? This transforms frustration into productive learning. It's how you build resilience.
That makes a lot of sense. We're essentially taking ownership of the entire learning process, acknowledging mistakes without letting them define us. We're adopting an experimental mindset.
Exactly. This ties directly into developing a growth-oriented mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication, hard work, and learning from experience. When you have this mindset, You see challenges and failures not as indicators of your limitations, but as opportunities to grow stronger.
So it's not about thinking I either have this ability or I don't, but rather I can improve this ability with effort and the right strategies.
You've got it. You can actively cultivate this by seeking out challenges that are just a little bit beyond your current comfort zone. Each time you successfully navigate a tougher challenge, your confidence in your ability to handle future difficulties naturally grows.
So it forms a continuous cycle. You face challenges, you put in the work, you learn from what might feel like failures. You adjust your strategy, you celebrate the wins, and that accumulated experience and positive outlook builds confidence, preparing you for even bigger challenges.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. Confidence in self-teaching isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's the robust result of consistent, strategic effort in maintaining a positive, learning-focused outlook.
Let's take a moment to recap the key strategies we've discussed for building this essential self-teaching confidence. First, we have celebrate small wins. This means breaking down your learning goals, acknowledging every single step you take forward, and making your progress visible and undeniable.
Yes, and second, we discuss the importance of reframing failures as learning opportunities. It's crucial to view mistakes not as setbacks, but as valuable feedback. Ask diagnostic questions about what went wrong, and then adjust your approach accordingly.
And third, we emphasized cultivating a growth-oriented mindset. This involves actively embracing challenges, understanding that your abilities are not fixed but can be developed, and viewing any setbacks as temporary detours rather than dead ends. Doing this builds tangible evidence that you are, indeed, a capable and evolving learner.
Ultimately, self-teaching confidence is built brick by brick through successful learning experiences. By consistently breaking down skills, celebrating each achievement, learning constructively from stumbles, and genuinely believing in your capacity to grow, you are constructing that unshakable foundation.
It's incredibly empowering to realize that confidence, like any other skill, can be developed and strengthened over time.
Exactly. By consciously applying these strategies, celebrating your wins, reframing perceived failures, and nurturing that growth mindset, you're not just learning a specific subject, you're fundamentally learning how to learn. And in doing so, you're building unshakable belief in your own innate ability to master anything.
That's a truly motivating thought to carry forward. Next episode, we'll explore integrating all these learned skills into a more cohesive whole. We'll be covering integrating your skills beyond the single skill.
Looking forward to wrapping up the series with that. Welcome back, everyone, to Teach Yourself Anything. We're on episode 11, and it's a big one.
We've spent a lot of time diving deep into learning specific skills, mastering practice, seeking feedback, and powering through those tough plateaus. But what happens after you've learned that skill? How do you make it truly stick? And more importantly, how do you start using it in conjunction with other skills to achieve even bigger things?
That's a great question, Lisa. It feels like we've built this incredible toolkit, and now we're ready to build something amazing with it. This isn't just about acquiring a single skill anymore. It's about becoming a more capable, adaptable, and versatile person. It's about integration.
Exactly, Alex. Think about it. Most of the truly interesting and impactful achievements in life aren't the result of mastering just one thing. They're the result of skillfully combining multiple abilities. A fantastic chef, for example, not only knows how to cook, that's one skill, but they also understand flavor profiles, recipe development, kitchen management, customer service, and perhaps even business marketing if they own a restaurant. Each is a distinct skill, but their true mastery comes from how they're woven together.
So, we're moving from learning individual threads to weaving a tapestry. That makes a lot of sense. How do we start with this weaving process? What's the first step in integrating newly acquired skills?
The first step is intentional reflection. After you've gained a solid level of proficiency in a skill, remember our goal isn't perfection, but competence with the ability to improve. You need to consciously ask yourself, how does this skill connect with what I already know or do? It's about looking for those overlapping areas. If you learned coding, how does that connect with your existing problem-solving skills? If you learned a new language, how can you use that to enhance your understanding of different cultures or even improve your native language by understanding grammatical structures more deeply?
It's like looking at a new puzzle piece and not just seeing its shape, but seeing where it might fit with the pieces you've already placed. And this isn't just about a hobby, right? This applies to our professional lives too.
Absolutely. Imagine you're a graphic designer. You've mastered design principles, typography, and color theory. Then you decide to learn video editing. Suddenly, you can offer a much broader range of services. You can create dynamic social media campaigns, produce explainer videos, or even build motion graphics for a client's website. This synergy between design and video editing makes you significantly more valuable. You're not just a designer, you're a visual storyteller.
That's powerful. So, after that initial reflection, the next step is to actively seek opportunities to use these skills together. It's putting them into practice in a blended way.
Precisely.
Don't let your hard-earned skills sit idle in separate boxes. Actively look for projects or tasks that require a combination. It might feel a bit awkward at first, like using a new tool in an unfamiliar way. But that's where the real magic happens. This is where we move into what I call skill stacking.
Skill stacking. I like that. It sounds very deliberate. So, it's about intentionally layering one skill on top of another. Can you give us another example?
Certainly. Let's say someone has learned public speaking, that's one skill. They've become comfortable on stage, delivering engaging presentations. Now they decide to learn digital marketing. By combining public speaking with digital marketing, they can become an incredible webinar host or an expert online course creator who can effectively present their material. They can use their speaking skills to deliver live sessions and their digital marketing skills to promote those sessions, build an audience, and manage the enrollment process.
This also seems to build momentum, doesn't it? When you see one skill enhancing another, it motivates you to seek out and learn even more skills, knowing they won't be isolated achievements anymore.
That's a fantastic point, Alex. It's a virtuous cycle. Each new integrated skill set opens up new possibilities and reinforces the value of learning itself. It amplifies your impact. We've talked about deliberate practice for individual skills, and this is a form of deliberate practice for your integrated capabilities. You're purposefully seeking out scenarios where multiple skills are tested and refined together.
And what about when we encounter challenges? This integration sounds like it could be more complex than mastering a single skill.
It absolutely can be. When you're combining skills, you might find yourself hitting a new kind of plateau, or perhaps a different type of challenge emerges. This is where our earlier lessons on the feedback loop become even more crucial. You need to be extra vigilant in seeking feedback, not just on your individual competencies, but on how smoothly they work together. Are you presenting confidently, but your marketing message is weak? Or is your marketing brilliant, but your presentation delivery falters? The feedback needs to address the combination.
So, the feedback loop needs to expand its scope. Instead of just asking, how was my coding? It becomes, how was my project conception, execution, and delivery through this integrated approach?
Exactly.
And remember the principle of breaking down complex ideas? When you're integrating skills, you might need to break down the integration itself for reflection. If a combined project didn't go as planned, don't just think this failed. Instead, ask yourself, at which point did the interaction between skill A and skill B break down? Was it in the planning phase, the execution, or the handover? Identifying these specific friction points allows for targeted improvement.
This reminds me of how a musician learns to improvise. They have their foundational knowledge of scales and chords, individual skills. But improvisation is about blending those skills in real time, making creative choices based on the ensemble, and responding to the music as it unfolds. It's a beautiful example of seamless integration.
That's a perfect analogy. And just like a musician might practice improvisational exercises, we can practice our own skill integrations. This could mean taking on cross-functional projects at work, volunteering for roles that require diverse skill sets, or even creating personal projects that intentionally push you to use your skills in tandem. For instance, if you've learned writing and illustration, create a short comic book. If you've learned public speaking and data analysis, create an infographic presentation with a spoken narrative.
Thinking about it this way makes me realize that the skills we learn aren't just tools to do one thing better. They're building blocks that, when combined, allow us to construct entirely new capacities and achieve goals that seemed impossible before. It's about synergy, the whole becoming greater than the sum of its parts.
Indeed. And this leads us to a crucial aspect of lifelong growth, seeing learning not as a series of isolated conquests, but as the continuous expansion and integration of our capabilities. Every new skill you acquire is an opportunity to not just add to a list, but to enrich the existing tapestry of your abilities. It's about becoming a more capable, creative, and adaptable problem solver.
So, to recap for our listeners, integrating your skills involves intentional reflection about how new abilities connect with existing ones, actively seeking opportunities to use them together through skill stacking, and refining this integration with targeted feedback and focused practice on the combined actions. It's about creating synergy and expanding your overall capacity.
That's a brilliant summary, Alex. We've come such a long way in this series, from understanding the meta-learning mindset to mastering practice, feedback, and now, the powerful act of integration. You're not just learning, you're building a dynamic, interconnected ecosystem of capabilities.
And this sets us up perfectly for our next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Teach Yourself Anything. This is our final episode.
Our last episode. It feels momentous, Alex. We've covered so much ground, from building the right mindset all the way to integrating our learned skills.
Exactly, Lisa. And today, we're talking about the most crucial aspect, lifelong growth. Because learning isn't a destination, it's a continuous journey. We're going to wrap up by revisiting the core principles that have guided us through this series and talk about how to keep that learning momentum going forever.
So, for anyone tuning in for the first time, or for those of us who've been with you every step of the way, what are those core principles you're referring to?
Great question. Let's bring it back to the beginning. We started with the meta-learning mindset. Remember that? It's about understanding how you learn. It's stepping back and observing your own learning process. This isn't just about absorbing information. It's about knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, and what techniques work best for you.
Right.
It was like getting a map of your own brain before you even started.